In the quiet heart of the Black Hills, Rapid City, South Dakota is known for its wide skies, rugged beauty, and in 1994, one of the most bizarre and tragic mysteries the town has ever witnessed. This is the story of Tina Marcotte, a devoted mother of three who vanished one summer night, and of the man many believe killed her, only to end his own life days later under chilling circumstances. This is Tina Marcotte and Tom Keeter, Buried Secrets, True Crime in Rapid City. Hi everybody, welcome to my little story on Tina and Tom. So I'm going to give you background information on both Tina and Tom and the bizarre case before I take you to the key locations in the story. So Tina Marcotte was 30 years old and she was originally from Manchester, New Hampshire. And she lived in Rapid City with her live-in boyfriend of 11 years, whose name was Patrick Leeson, and their 3 children. And she and Patrick worked at Black Hills Molding. It's a wood processing plant. And she was casual friends with Tom Keeter, who was 29. He also lived in Rapid, and he had 2 kids with his wife, Nancy. He was a forklift operator at Forest Products Distributors, which is on the outskirts of Rapid here. And he and Tina used to work for the same employer, Black Hills Molding. So in a 5-day period, one turned up missing, and the other turned up dead. It all began early Friday morning, June 24th, 1994. So Tina worked a late shift grading lumber at Black Hills Molding, and her shift ended at 12:30 a.m. Shortly after her shift ended, she called her best friend Vicky Riddle. And Vicky had already been asleep and woke up when the phone rang. And according to Vicky, Tina was very upset because she had just finished her shift and she'd gone out to the parking lot to go home, and she noticed that her left front tire was flat on her car. It was so flat she couldn't drive on it. And Vicky told her that she would give her a ride home. She just needed a few minutes to get dressed. But before Vicky had the chance to get her ready on, Tina told her that a car had pulled up in the parking lot. So she went out to see who it was, and Vicky waited on the phone for Tina to come back. So Vicky waited on the phone until Tina came back. And she said, "Never mind, Tom's here." And Vicky asked, who's Tom? And Tina said that she used to work with Tom and that he was going to give her a ride. So she and Vicky said their goodbyes. And that was the last time that anybody heard from Tina Marcotte. So initially, no one even reported her missing because Patrick thought that she would soon return. I guess she had a habit of this, disappearing. I mean, like going out and not coming home for a while. So on Saturday morning, Vicky called Tom Keeter and told him about Tina's phone call. But he denied giving her a ride home. So later that morning, he and Patrick showed up at Vicky's house. And she says that Tom became defensive when she mentioned Tina's phone call. And she told him that, as far as she knew, he was the only Tom that used to work with Tina. He tried to dismiss Vicky, saying that she was drunk and wouldn't know Tom from Ron. However, she insisted that Tina said that it was Tom who used to work here. Finally, he admitted that he was the only Tom that he ever knew that worked there, and Vicky noticed that he was glaring at her and not acting himself. Now, Patrick was standing there listening patiently, and he asked Tom if he was messing around with Tina. And Tom said he was not. And Patrick says that Tom's reaction didn't seem right to him. He says that if Tom was accused of something, he would beat that person up if he was innocent. I guess that was the type of person Tom was. He would just do stuff like that. Patrick says that Tom suggested that they go together to report Tina missing. And so they did that at 11 that morning at Rapid City Police Department. And when police went to check on her car, they noticed that the tire had most likely been slashed with a knife. Based on the shape of the puncture mark, they believe that somebody stuck a knife in the sidewall of the left front tire. And this suggested foul play. Definitely. Tom was asked by police to come in for an interview, and he voluntarily agreed to come in. He denied giving Tina a ride or even being in the area of her workplace. He said he could pass a lie detector test about it. He stated that he played in a softball game that night, Thursday, June 23rd. At around 11 p.m., he gave a friend a ride home, and he claimed that as he's driving home, his car, a bronze 1975 Pontiac Le Mans sedan, broke down behind the Super Duper grocery store on East St. Patrick Street. And he said he spent approximately 3 to 4 hours fixing the engine and carburetor under a streetlight. Tom never called his wife Nancy that night to say he'd been delayed. He finally arrived home at around 3:30 a.m. and told her that his car had broken down. And she told police that when he got home that night, he immediately washed and soaked his clothes, including his softball uniform. He told her that he wanted to wash out dirt and grease that got on him while fixing the car. On Sunday, he washed his shoes and shoelaces. Police believed that this was suspicious. However, Nancy said that he often did that. During his interrogation, he pointed out exactly where his car had been and where it had broken down. Police later canvassed that neighborhood and couldn't find anyone to confirm his alibi. In fact, 3 witnesses told police that they would have seen the car if it had been there. Now, investigator Dean Guffmiller of the Pennington County Sheriff's Department says that things were not adding up in relation to Tom's story. This led him and the other investigators to believe that Tom was almost definitely involved in Tina's disappearance. They learned from Tom's coworkers that he had a darker side. He reportedly did not get along well with them and was often angry or moody while working. Now, he was 6 feet tall and 185 pounds, so he was physically intimidating. And he also had a criminal record. He had previously been convicted of burglary and simple assault. And investigators discovered that he had previously abused alcohol and drugs. So on Monday, 3 days after Tina disappeared, police interviewed Tom at the lumberyard. They told him he was a suspect in her disappearance. And they asked him if he was having an affair with her, but he denied it. They also told him that blood had been found in his car and they were testing it to see if it was Tina's. The next morning, June 28th, he was dead. It was around 8:30 a.m. on June 28th, just after the shift change, when 2 workers found Tom's body in the lumberyard. His head had been crushed beneath the rear wheel of his forklift. Police and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, looked into the possibility that Tom's death was an accident. It was discovered that the forklift's parking brake was inoperable. OSHA later fined Forest Products distributors $1,750 for several safety infractions. However, investigators believed that the forklift would have rolled too slowly down the incline to accidentally crush Tom, as he was an agile man and an expert operator. In fact, he had undergone special training less than 2 weeks before his death. Mechanical failure was also ruled out. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background, setting up the mystery of the whole thing. So now I'll be taking you to Black Hills Molding. It is now called HFW Solutions Inc. I have no idea what kind of business it is now. And I'll also be taking you to Forest Products Distributors, where Tom allegedly committed self-unaliving, and where Tina's body was found eventually. Hey everybody, here we are, Dias Avenue, site of the former Black Hills molding business. So here it is. HFW Solutions. It looks like they're permanently closed now. But yeah, back in 1994, this was Black Hills Molding. So, you can imagine, if you will, 12:30 a.m., June 24th, 1994. Tina Marcotte comes out to the parking lot here. Notices her front left tire is flat. Goes back inside, calls her friend, Vicki Riddle, and tells her she needs a ride. Then she sees a car pull up into the parking lot. Right here. Tells her friend, oh look, someone's pulled up, let me go see who it is. Comes back, says, oh, Tom's gonna give me a ride. Vicky says, who's Tom? Tina says, I used to work here with Tom, and he's gonna give me a ride. So that was the last time that anybody heard from Tina. Okay, before I take you to Forest Products Distributors, let's get the rest of the story here. It's pretty crazy. So we left off, Tom's co-workers found him underneath his forklift. His head had been crushed, and the police had started their investigation. So the police believed that while Tom was working alone, he loaded at least a ton of lumber onto the forklift and set it on an incline, jumped from the cab, and positioned himself perfectly in the machine's path. And investigator Guff Miller says that in his opinion, Tom took his own life because he was very overwhelmed by the investigation into Tina's disappearance and was worried that they were closing in on him, and he needed a way out. He believed that Tom attempted to make it look like an accident in order to get insurance benefits for his family. And the investigators reenacted the suicide scenario on videotape using 2x4s to simulate Tom's body. And the forklift ran over the lumber. So the coroner ruled his death a suicide. So from the beginning, Nancy, Tom's widow, disagreed with their ruling. She says that he would not have left her and their kids, and that she will never believe that he committed self-unaliving. So she hired an attorney, Rich Bode, and the private investigator, John Kolbach, to look into Tom's death. Kolbach did not believe anyone would choose the excruciating type of death that Tom did. He and Bode said the recreation done by investigators did not prove that the forklift would run over a body. They interviewed dozens of people connected to the case and also hired Dr. Val Farmer, a clinical psychologist. He says that he rejects the idea that Tom's death was a self-unaliving because of the lack of suicidal behavior, thoughts, or emotions that went into his life in the 4 days prior to his death. He concluded that there was no evidence to show that Tom felt guilty about Tina's disappearance or was depressed enough to off himself. Co-workers said that he acted normally on the day of his death, and Nancy says that police searched for a suicide note in their home. However, nothing was found. Nancy's convinced that someone, identity and their motive unknown, attacked Tom in the lumberyard, then crushed him beneath the wheels of his own forklift. She believes that he was murdered and wishes that the police would investigate his death more instead of closing the case. She says that there are leads in his case and the police have not followed up on them. One lead was discovered by Bode. He interviewed one of Tom's co-workers, who said that another co-worker offered him $500 to break Tom's legs over a work dispute. The man said that the same co-worker later bragged about hitting Tom over the head and pulling him under the forklift. However, police have stated that they do not believe the man's story. Guthmiller says that there were no drag marks to indicate that anybody had dragged Tom. So Tom weighed almost 200 pounds, and it would have been difficult for someone to carry him. Also, there were no signs of a struggle. As a result, investigator Guthmiller does not believe the murder theory. But the police do believe that Tom murdered Tina. They speculate that on the night she disappeared, he showed up unexpectedly outside of her office and intentionally slashed her car tire to keep her from leaving. Guthmiller does not believe that Tom's appearance at the office at 12:30 a.m. was a coincidence and thinks that it was planned. He thinks that Tom was out there waiting for Tina when she got off work, and he believes that the only thing that failed in Tom's plan was that she was on the phone with Vicky at the time. According to the police's theory, they believe that after Tina got into Tom's car, he made sexual advances towards her, and when she rejected him, the result was murder. Nancy, however, says that the police have no evidence to link him to Tina's disappearance and says that nothing was found in his car that linked him to Tina. And she claims that the blood they found in the car was actually Kool-Aid, and no witnesses placed her in his car that night. She believes that Vicky may have been mistaken about what Tina said in the phone call. And Nancy claims that prior to Tina's death, he told her several times that someone was trying to frame him for Tina's disappearance. However, he said that he did not know who was doing it, and according to her, he maintained his innocence until his death. So she also claimed that he was never violent towards her except for when he pushed her a few times while he had been drinking. According to her, in the 4 years prior to his death, he did not use drugs and rarely drank. Several friends and relatives said he was a quiet, thoughtful family man, and overall nice guy. They do not believe he committed self-unaliving or killed Tina. They also do not believe he would have tried to have an affair with her. They say that he loved Nancy too much. So an interesting side note was that Unsolved Mysteries aired this episode on January 5th, 1996. And while they had been filming this episode, there was a major break. So on October 11th, 1995, around noon, a worker at Forest Products Distributors was using a piece of heavy equipment to move a pile of old scrap wood in the remote, rarely used back portion of the lot. When a few pieces of wood fell off the pile, he went to go pick them up, and he then spotted a badly decomposed body in the pile of wood. Based on dental and medical records, Along with clothing and other items found nearby, it was identified as Tina's. An autopsy confirmed that she had been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. Police believe she was killed on the day she disappeared. They also believe she was killed elsewhere and dumped there. Investigators continued to investigate the case for several years, but both are now considered closed. According to Tina's daughter, Sherry, her DNA was matched to blood found on Tom's shoe. Investigators told Sherry that if Tom was still alive, they would charge him with Tina's murder. Okay, so let's head on over to Forest Products and I'll show you where Tom passed away and also where approximately Tina's body was found. However, I can't go on the actual property, but I will try to film as much as I can. Here we are, folks. Forest Products Distributors. This is where Tom Keeter worked and where he died. Now I can't go too much farther here. Go back over that hill a little bit is where they found Tina in October 1995. As you may know, as I've already mentioned, that she was buried in a wood pile. An employee here found her. You can't go much too farther here because apparently they're working and it's private property, of course. That's where it all happened. Tom Keeter was 29 years old when he died here in Rapid. He was a father, a husband, and a man whose name is forever tied to a mystery that still haunts this community. Tom told police he hadn't seen Tina Marcotte and then changed his story. His wife said he came home late, acting strangely. Blood was found in his car, and before investigators could press further, Tom was found crushed beneath a forklift at his workplace. Now some say it was unaliving, self-unaliving. Others still question if it was something else. And more than a year later, Tina's body was discovered under a pile of lumber, just yards from where Tom died. She had been murdered and hidden in plain sight. Authorities closed the case, and even Tina's daughter Sherry said that they told her that if Tom was still alive, they would have charged him with murder. But no one ever heard his side of the story. Was it guilt that brought him here? Panic? Or is there something more we may never know? What we're left here are two lives cut short, and a silence that speaks louder than words. Thanks for watching.